The Cali Cartel was a drug cartel based in southern Colombia, around the city of Cali and the Valle del Cauca department. Its founders were the Rodriguez Orjuela brothers, Gilberto and Miguel, and José Santa Cruz Londono, also known as Cheap. They broke away from Pablo Escobar and his Medellin associates in the late 1980s when Helmer Herrera, also known as Pacho, joined what became a four-man executive board that ran the cartel. With connections to British mercenaries, allies among countries, countless spies and informants in the government and its vast intelligence and surveillance network throughout the city of Santiago de Cali, the cartel was once renowned and compared to the Russian KGB by the American D, calling it the most powerful crime syndicate in history, later called the Cali KGB. At the height of the Cali cartel's reign, they were cited as having control over 90% of the world's cocaine market and for being directly responsible for the growth of the cocaine market in Europe, controlling 90% of the market. By the mid-1990s, the trafficking empire of the Cali cartel was a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. The Cali cartel was formed by the Rodriguez brothers and Santa Cruz, all coming from what is described as a higher social background than most other traffickers of the time. The recognition of this social background was displayed in the group's nickname as Cali's Gentlemen. The group originally assembled as a ring of kidnappers known as Las Quimas, which was led by Luis Fernando Tamayo Garcia. Las Quimas were implicated in numerous kidnappings including that of two Swiss citizens, a diplomat Herman Buff and a student, Zach Jasmiles Martin. They reportedly received $700,000 in ransom, which is believed to have gone on to fund their drug trafficking empire. The assembled group first involved itself in trafficking marijuana. Due to the product's low profit rate, and larger amount required to traffic to cover resources, the fledgling group decided to shift their focus to a more lucrative drug, cocaine. In the early 1970s the cartel sent Helmer Pacho Herrera to New York City to establish a distribution center. This action came during a time when the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, D, was not fully pursuing cocaine, and viewed the drug as less critical than heroin, at one point releasing a report stating of cocaine it is not physically addictive, and does not usually result in serious consequences, such as crime, hospital emergency room admissions or both. The Cali cartel leadership was made up by Gilberto Rodriguez Orjuela el Electricista, the chess player, Miguel Rodriguez Orjuela el Señor, the Lord, José Santa Cruz Londono el Estudiante, the student, or Cheap Santa Cruz, Jorge Alberto Rodriguez Don Golito, Helmer Herrera Bedrago Pacho. Some top associates were Victor Patino Fomkel Quimico, the chemist, or La Fiera, the beast, Henry Loizas Abalos el Alacran, the scorpion, Jose Federer ex-member of Guerrilla, and Fanariz Abla Arzias. The lax attitude of the D on cocaine is believed to be what allowed the group to prosper, but also to develop and organize itself into multiple cells that appeared to operate independently, yet reported to a celino or manager, who reported to Jorge Alberto Rodriguez, who in turn reported back to Cali. 2. In the mid-1980s Jorge formed an independent drug cell called the 400 Cartel, which grew to eventually oversee all shipments and distributions of narcotics imported into the United States by the Cali Cartel. The independent cell structures is what set the Cali Cartel apart from the Medellin Cartel. The Cali Cartel operated as a tight group of independent criminal organizations, as opposed to the Medellin's structure of a central leader, Pablo Escobar. It was believed each cell would report to a larger group, who would then report to the leaders of the cartel. The groups as cited by former Cali accountant Guillermo Palomari are, narco-trafficking, control over processing labs, shipping methods and routes. Military, control over security, punishment, discipline and bribery in relation to military or police officials. Political, responsible for establishing governmental links such as with congressional members, federal officials and local authorities. Financial, control over money laundering, front businesses and legitimate business ventures. Legal, control over representation for captured traffickers, hiring of lobbyists and overseas representation. The Cali Cartel would eventually go on to be known by then-D Chief Thomas Constantine as the biggest, most powerful crime syndicate we've ever known. The Cali Cartel, whose brief roots began in trafficking marijuana, soon shifted to cocaine due to its ease of transporting and greater profit margin. The cartel would be known for innovation in trafficking and production by moving its refining operations out of Colombia to Peru and Bolivia, as well as for pioneering new trafficking routes through Panama. The cartel also diversified into opium and was reported to have brought in a Japanese chemist to help its refining operation. According to reports and testimony of Thomas Constantine to the United States Congress, Cali would be the dominant group in trafficking South American heroin due to their access to the opium-growing areas of Colombia. Debate over the cartel's participation in heroin trafficking remains. It is believed the cartel's leaders were not involved in heroin trading, however close associates to them were, such as Ivan Erdinola Gray Jails. Their relationships, it is believed, led to cooperation with heroin distribution centers. At the height of the Cali Cartel's reign, they were cited as having control over 90% of the world's cocaine market and for being directly responsible for the growth of the cocaine market in Europe, controlling 90% of the market. By the mid-1990s, the trafficking empire of the Cali Cartel was a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. In order to launder the incoming money of the trafficking operations, the Cali Cartel heavily invested its funds into legitimate business ventures as well as front companies to mask the money. In 1996, it was believed the cartel was grossing $7 billion in annual revenue from the U.S. alone. With the influx of cash comes the need to launder the funds. One of the first instances of the Cali Cartel's laundering operations came when Gilberto Rodriguez Orjuela was able to secure the position of chairman of the board of Banco de Trabajadores. The bank was believed to have been used to launder funds for the Cali Cartel, as well as Pablo Escobar's Medellin cartel. Cartel members were permitted, through their affiliation with Gilberto, to overdraft accounts and take out loans without repayment. Capitalizing on this basis, Gilberto was able to found the first Inter-Americas Bank operating out of Panama. 6. In an interview with Time, Gilberto admitted to monies being laundered through the bank, however, he attributed the process to only legal actions. The laundering, which Gilberto states was in accordance with Panamanian law, is what led to the U.S. authorities pursuing him. Gilberto later started the Grupo Radio Colombiano, a network of over 30 radio stations and a pharmaceutical chain named Drogas La Ribaja, which at its height amassed over 400 stores in 28 cities, employing 4,200. The pharmaceutical chain's value was estimated at $216 million. Political violence was largely discounted by the Cali Cartel, as the threat of violence often sufficed. The organization of the cartel was structured so that only people who had family in Colombia would handle operations that involved both Cali and U.S. sites, keeping the family within reach of the cartel. Family members became the cartel's insurance against members going to assisting officials or refusing payments of product received. The threat of death also hung over those who made mistakes. It is believed the cartel would often kill junior members who made gross errors. In his book End of Millennium, Manuel Castells states the Cali Cartel had participated in social cleansing of hundreds of desechables, English, discardables. The desechables included prostitutes, street children, petty thieves, homosexuals and the homeless. 15. Along with some of the locals, the Cali Cartel formed parties self-named Grupos de Limpieza Social, English, social cleansing groups, who murdered the desechables.